Welcome to CareerSpeak. On this edition, we will talk with Ritu Jadwani, a master's student in global fashion enterprise at Thomas Jefferson University and the founder of her company Namaste NYC. More information on her company can be found at namaste-nyc.com. I am your host, Patrick Ryan, and this is being recorded on the East Falls campus of Thomas Jefferson University. This is CareerSpeak. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of CareerSpeak. Today, Ritu Jadwani is with me. Ritu, how are you?
I'm good, Patrick. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
So, Ritu, for all the people that are just getting to know you, hearing your voice for the first time, who is Ritu? What do we need to know? And you know the setup of the podcast, so we're really interested in your 3 words that sort of have crafted your story for success. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So hi, everyone. My name is Ritu Jadwani, and I'm a recent graduate of the Global Fashion Enterprise Master's Program at Thomas Jefferson University. I'm also a social entrepreneur, and I run a fair trade brand that creates beautifully handcrafted products such as clothing, scarves, and trinket accessories. The brand is based out of India, but we sell globally, and I call it Namaste New York City. So, once again, Ryan, thank you so much for having me and inviting me to share my story here. To start with and to answer your question, I feel the 3 words that I would like to use today are engage, empower, and empathy.
Let's break those down one at a time. Let's start with engage, how this word came to be as being involved in your community, creating a sense of community. Do you feel like you've always been an outgoing person? Do you think that's always been a part of engaging in your community in this larger success word?
Well, honestly, you would be surprised. No, not at all. I was a really, really shy kid growing up in high school. And when I tell my current friends that backstory, they're really surprised as to, really, you were a shy kid? I can't imagine that. But when I backtrack my journey, when I started studying fashion design at National Institute of Fashion Technology in Gandhinagar in India, I met people from around the country. There were people from East India, West India, southern regions. And this gave me a chance to interact and meet people from diverse ethnicities, backgrounds, language, culture. Not many people know that in India, each state speaks a different language, has different type of food. So this exposed me to a lot of different cultures within my own country. I felt like a new person. Moreover, I studied abroad in France where, interestingly, I was the only Indian in the class and among 2 other Indians in the university. So, well, here I am studying abroad in France, not knowing the local language and between people from different countries. So I started learning French, because I had to interact with the locals and make friends with the international students as well. It was a big cultural shock. I did not speak my native language, Hindi, for 15 days. And then I found a fellow friend from Pakistan. And the first question I asked him was, hey, do you speak Hindi? Like, can I have a conversation with you in Hindi? Because I haven't spoken my native language for so many days. But when I look back, I think it made me a very outgoing person. Because I was just thrown into a bunch of different people and supposed to travel with them, supposed to make friends with them, be with them in the classroom and have a discussion. So that experience really opened me up. And to top it all, the previous master's program that I was enrolled in, it's called Global Innovation Management, had an exchange semester in United States at NC State in Raleigh, North Carolina. And then we went for a short exchange program in China for a month. So here I am, probably like 21 or 22, meeting people from around the world, hopping on flights every 4 months to fly to a new country, meet new people, engage, interact, and dip into their culture. So when I got back to India or even to New York for my internship, my friend asked me, do you drink coffee or tea? And I'm like, I drink bubble tea, I drink green tea. If you give me coffee, macchiato, Americano, whatever you give me, I'll drink it, because I've been exposed to so much now that I started engaging in people, in cultures, in communities, in everything that came to me. And when my parents and my friends back home saw the change in me, they were really surprised. And I think it was all for good. And so after a year, the honors program initiated a trip to United Nations in New York, and I had a chance to go there. Man, I was on cloud nine. Being in a space where I could meet and interact with global world leaders and discuss or even talk about issues that are close to my heart. So, education, girl education, disabilities, or just women's rights, or sanitation, health. Every topic was discussed. And we had panelists from UNICEF, from UN youth leaders. It was so inspiring to be a part of this trip where we got to learn so much. So I kept the engagement going within the various departments at the university.
So other than this particular trip, how else have you engaged in your classes and in other opportunities here at Jefferson?
So being at Jefferson was great because we had classmates from various countries. So here I am in a class full of students from China, Vietnam, Hong Kong, America, Bangladesh. And I particularly remember one of my classes that was called Global Sourcing, where we were discussing about trade tariffs and import-export issues and other global issues in the world of apparel industry. So that was an interesting class which gave me a perspective of the global trade in the apparel. While in another class, which is called Technology of Fashion, we learned about the current and new developments in fashion, looking at the technical aspect. So we learned about 3D printing, 3D pattern making, and all this motivated me a lot to read more, learn more, and gradually comprehend and apply what I learned into my business in Namaste NYC. And the best part was that my program director then, Professor Mark Sunderland, he was very supportive of classes being interdisciplinary. So I was giving a presentation in one of his classes wearing a scarf from Namaste, a hand block printed scarf, and he looks at the scarf and he's like, Ritu, why don't you take a textile design print class as an elective? And maybe that will help you in your design process and also give you exposure to the textile design program. So I'm like, thank you, Professor Sunderland. That's a great idea. So I started with one textile class. Then I took another class in sustainability, which was from the Sustainable Architecture program, and another negotiation class from the MBA program. So I tried to take electives from other programs, apart from my core subjects, of course, from GFE, to engage myself and to get a broader perspective of various industries and apply those concepts in my coursework or even in my company, Namaste NYC.
A lot of people probably don't know, and I know you're going to talk about this a little bit later, or you probably will talk about it, is that the company was established before you started here at Jefferson. And so not only are you looking at this from an educational standpoint for your GFE program, but you're also looking at it from a professional development standpoint of what other classes can I take that are going to influence and help my brand. So can you talk a little bit more about that professional engagement and how that played out?
Sure, yeah. I started Namaste NYC in 2013 and I came to Jefferson in 2017. So the company had already been established for 4 years. We were selling very well online through websites, other portals, and supplying to stores. So my bent of mind was very professional, but I was in a student mindset as well. So apart from the classes, I tried my best to engage and connect with other professional organizations in the city. So there's a group called Philly Startup Leaders, where when I told them about my company, I got an email in November 2017 saying that, hey, we want to invite you as a panelist to speak at one of our events. And I was thrilled. I'm like, here I'm a student and I'm getting invited to speak at panels. Yeah, sure, I'll come and share my story. I don't mind. And to my surprise, I was the only woman panelist among the 5 people on the stage. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. And slowly I got to know about the Philadelphia Fashion Incubator, So I started attending their events where I had a chance to meet other local Philly-based designers. And New York is close by, so I took full advantage of that and joined the New York Sustainable Apparel Fair Trade Coalition group, where a lot of fair trade designers come together and talk about issues and discuss the problems or the plus points in their industry. So apart from school, it was very important for me to engage myself professionally and put myself out there to understand what the industry or the professional world is talking about. And I also had a chance to work with the School of Business, where the project was about curriculum revision for the program that I was enrolled in, the Global Fashion Enterprise. And since I'd already taught in India for 2 years at National Institute of Fashion Technology, I had a background in academics. Moreover, I had a business. So these two positions during the summertime gave me a perfect balance of entrepreneurship and academic research, both subjects close to my heart.
So for all the listeners that don't know, I know you're going to talk a lot about your career and your company, and your internships will probably feed into a lot of that. But let's talk specifically about the Blackstone LaunchPad for those that don't even know what it is. So what is the Blackstone LaunchPad, and how was your experience there when you worked over the summer?
Sure. So we do have a School of Business, and we have programs like MBA, Finance, Marketing, Accounts at the university. But it's strange that not many students know that we have a launchpad, the Blackstone LaunchPad Entrepreneurship Center, which can help support you in business. So for students out there, if you have a business plan and you need help coaching, mentoring, reviewing that, we are here. You can make an appointment with us and we can help you work on that. If you have an idea, you have a startup, we can also help you market your products better. Moreover, we also organize the Top Run Business Model Competition. We have the Nexus Maximus Conference in October, which are two big events of the year. We're located in the Deck Building, and we are here to support the entrepreneurship ideas of any Jefferson student, even faculty and staff.
Let's move on to your second word, empower. So all the things we've been talking about to this point are about engaging your community, engaging your fellow students, engaging the cultures around you, which you've been exposed to a lot, even at your undergraduate years. So that's fantastic. So empower, what about this word has led to your success?
Sure. So at Namaste NYC, an ethical fair trade company that I started in 2013, we work towards empowering women, and hence the word empower. We train women in sewing and hand embroidery, and they help us create scarves, apparel, trinket accessories, and fabric bags. In 2013, we started with 2 women, and today, 2019, we have about 20 women artisans working with us. So empowering these women to become independent has been a big part of my social entrepreneurship journey, my business, and my working with crafts and artisans in India.
What, if anything, has inspired you to work with women and empower women, and then more specifically to the language you just used, to help them become independent? What has inspired you to do that?
Sure. Just to backtrack a little, when I was getting my undergraduate degree in fashion design, I saw a lot of my family friends who were older to me getting divorced, and they had to come back to their father's houses in the city of Ahmedabad or go find a new job. So they were practically helpless. And just to give you some context of where I come from the westernmost state in India called Gujarat, which is known for its entrepreneurship genius. So if you are a Gujarati coming from Gujarat, you are bound to start a business at some point in your life. So business was in my genes. And my friends, as young as 18, would start their business. But it is also ironic to see that these friends are also expected to get married by 23 and start a family. Firstly, working for women in the villages is still considered a taboo. Forget working full-time. It was not allowed at all. And as you may know, marriage is a big part of our culture. So when women get married, they often have to depend on their husbands for financial support. or if they're not married after finishing their university education, they would often go to their father's houses or are expected to get married earlier just to become financially dependent. So, financial independence was never a concept in their minds. And that's when I knew that I'm going to start something to empower these women, to make them independent. And in that process, um, I made myself independent as well. So, yeah, that's the story behind empowering women and empowering myself.
Can you talk a little bit about where you're from? And I know that we had talked in pre-production about an earthquake and things that had happened that had also made this even more apparent to you. So can you introduce that a little bit and talk about how that may have influenced you even more to empower women in your community?
Sure. So when I was in high school, there was an earthquake in my region, Gujarat, Western India. Of course, there was a lot of loss of life and property. People did not have houses to live in. And so there were some enterprising leader women from Ahmedabad, the city that I grew up in. And they came up with the idea of using hand skills of these people who had lost houses. These women in the villages had great embroidery skills, but did not have the finance or the ideas to start embroidery. So these leaders from Ahmedabad would go into the villages of Kutch, where there was just rubble and a few trees. And they started getting together these female embroidery artisans. The artisans would sit below the trees and created hand embroidered scarves, saris, cushion covers, bed sheets, and other items which were free size and could be sold in a global market. And this started selling really well in the global marketplaces. And everyone noticed that there is a demand and a need for handmade artisan products. And so I kind of grew around that movement of social entrepreneurship, working with artisans in the villages, going and talking to them about their journeys, learning life skills from them, and really empowering them with independence by telling them, hey, you have a great skill, and let's try and use it in collaboration so it does good for everyone. And at Jefferson, also, while working at the Launchpad, we tried to create a culture of entrepreneurship. So I had fellow co-workers or friends who had companies like Alex from Dive Design. There's another student who has a company called Artists Need Lunch Money. We all would come together and sit in the Launchpad office and ideate and discuss about the good things, the brainstorm upon their problems, talk about conferences. Oh, I went to this conference and I liked this and I did that and I heard this panelist and I'm following this speaker and I saw this TED talk. So creating that community around me for the betterment of everyone was a big part culturally, which came from where I grew up.
I really like how you're mentioning, Alex in this podcast. Obviously, he has an episode as well. If you're interested in listening to that, you can listen to that on our YouTube channel for WPHU. But it's so interesting that picking a school, sometimes it's just serendipitous, but, the culture and the community that happens, you're interacting with some of the people that have done previous episodes and that are doing their own great things that we haven't even talked to yet. And that's all happening while you're doing your schoolwork. So it's so exciting to see even cross-disciplinary students are engaging in meeting each other. So we understand a little bit about your company, right? It's sustainable, hand-embroidered crafts and clothing and bags. We have a little bit of an idea of what's going on, but what's the model at Namaste? I mean, put all these pieces together. How does it work? How does it go from we have no product to we have product?
Sure. So at Namaste, I initially started collaborating with nonprofits to try and find artisans who were good at embroidery skills to start my sampling and slowly move on to production. We had, like I mentioned before, we had 2 embroidery women in 2013 and we needed more. So we went around villages asking women if they would be interested in working with us. Initially, they would be shocked, like, hey, we don't have skills. But then we said, don't worry, we'll train you. So I partnered with one of my mentors, Ms. Jai Kakani, who had a similar vision for crafts, artisans, and design. So when we went around these villages, we hired the women to work with us for a month. We would train them in sewing and hand embroidery and pay them a stipend to come and work at our center. And they would create smaller products for us just to teach them or just so that they can learn the skills. So it was really tough to keep them engaged initially. But as they saw that the products were selling, the women also started becoming more engaged and saw that they were empowering themselves. So we created a model of what I call the homework kits. As you may know, women in India are also full-time housewives, have to take care of their household chores, do the cooking, cleaning, like women everywhere, or their mothers, they have to take care of their kids. It was very difficult for them to come to the center full-time and work full-time. So we decided that we're going to give them these homework kits where everything is pre-packaged. The yarn, the fabric, the mirrors, the beads, everything is packed in a polythene bag or a fabric bag, and they can take it home. And they can bring it back after it's embroidered or whatever task has been assigned. So whether they're creating tassels, creating beads, they can work at their own pace in the comfort of their house and bring it back to us. So we realized that giving them the flexibility of working from home was much more empowering and rewarding for them. And it also helped us save some overheads of paying rent for a larger office. So we were working from a smaller studio space. But by this time, we've created a network of 20-25 women artisans who can manage our sampling and production very easily. But it was a little complicated, but we had to streamline a lot of things.
Tell us about the name, Namaste NYC. Why this name? Tell me more about the background of the name.
Sure. So I'm going to backtrack a little again. In the summer of 2008, I had a chance to visit New York for the first time. That's when I took a summer course at FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City in Manhattan. And this gave me a chance to walk around stores, look at big department stores like Bergdorf Goodman, Saks Fifth Avenue, and get an understanding of the market that was here. I still remember when I was walking around, I saw a beautifully hand-embroidered handbag from the villages of Kutch in Gujarat, my region, in New York City. This was stocked at a Japanese designer store. So I'm like, hey, there is a market for handmade products in a fashion-forward capital city. And during this time, I was also traveling a lot. So for internships, for leisure, and I loved Indian crafts. So I wanted to have an element of India and the fashion capital in the name. So something which was handcrafted, but still contemporary, that you can wear it in New York or you can wear it in another city which is fashion forward in the world. I would also like to mention here the problem of disability. So earlier I started working with women artisans who were perfectly fine, they were skilled. And slowly I found out this community which was of differently able women. So here the skilled, completely fine women artisans are not allowed to work. Imagine the plight of differently able women. So slowly we started collaborating with this non-profit where we would train differently able women in sewing and hand embroidery. And they were so good at finishing, we slowly diverted all our production to this non-profit. Initially, I would just tell them to help me create the products as per my designs and give them my directions. But slowly I realized that they were not only skilled, but also had a great sense of design. So we started collaborating on design, and we ended up creating better products which were selling faster in the market. So that's when I also realized that when we work with artisans and local crafts, artisans understand the craft much better than the designer does, so it's important to collaborate, and it gives the craft much more justice than a designer can do himself.
So the fashion industry is notoriously known for waste and pollution, but your company is making waves and trying to be sustainable in the fashion industry. So can you kind of talk about how you incorporate sustainability with your brand?
Sure. Sustainability is also a very cultural phenomena which is rooted in the Indian genes. So, like I mentioned, I partner with a differently abled women's nonprofit organization. What we do here is we use or recycle most of our production waste and we create tassel scarves. Initially, we introduced these tassel scarves in the market and they became one of our best sellers. And we further expanded the range and brought in more prints and colors. So, apart from using 100% natural dyes and block printing all our fabrics, we use only cotton and pure silks. We try and recycle most of our production fabric. The other big scraps are used for making packaging bags, which is used to pack smaller products like jewelry and trinket accessories. Uh, as mentioned, it's an ethical company, so of course, all our artisans are paid fair wages, which are very much above the market rate. I would also like to mention a sustainability conference that I had attended in 2013, again at FIT in New York. This is when I was just brainstorming and doing some research on what the company is going to look like, what are the keystones, core ethics. And we heard from such a diverse set of speakers at that conference. There was, I still remember, there was Amy Hall from Eileen Fisher. And I look up to Eileen Fisher as a great inspirational brand. And listening from someone who is a strategic, I think at that point of time, she was strategic sustainability consulting head at Eileen Fisher. And she also spoke about a women's initiative and how they're incorporating sustainability. So sustainability, yes, is a very big aspect at Namaste NYC in terms of dyes, fair wages, working with women, and recycling our scraps.
So do you still have connections in New York or FIT, or do you still find yourself getting involved in doing things in New York?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So when I came to Jefferson for my master's, apart from the program, I picked Jefferson because it was so close to New York. I could just hop on a bus and attend a conference or a day event and come back inspired. So, yes, I do keep in touch with FIT. And it's interesting to just count or connect the dots. It was at this Fashion Institute of Technology Innovations and Sustainability Conference that I had a chance to meet someone from Clinton Global Initiative. So they were organizing a conference in 2018, that is last year, in Chicago in October. And I learned about Clinton Global Initiative, the CGIU, and I said, oh, I want to apply. And I applied to this conference, got accepted, traveled to Chicago, attended the conference, and you won't believe, in early April this year, we got an email again from the Clinton Foundation. Like, oh, we are very inspired with the work that our students are doing in social entrepreneurship. And we would like to invite you to Clinton Foundation in New York and showcase your products. So I'm like, whoa. And here I am, like 3 weeks ago, I had a chance to meet Chelsea Clinton. We are sitting in a conference room with about 18 to 20 selected students who were able to make it to New York and having a one-on-one discussion about our social enterprises, getting inspired from various speakers, panelists, from each other, just learning from the other students in the conference room. So, yes, I do very much keep in touch with FIT, and I'm going to do the same with Jefferson because you never know. One thing leads to another, and it can take you anywhere.
Just to be clear with the listeners, when did this happen? This happened recently?
Recently, yeah. Last month, I was in New York and had a chance to meet Chelsea Clinton and other change makers in the industry. And
well, I'm glad we decided to record today because that's a really good story. That's a really good story. So
yeah, definitely.
So let's move on to your last word. So engage, empower, and now empathy. Tell me about this, and I know you've talked a lot about this already. I mean, especially you just told the story about how you're conducting business in India, how your communication style has to change between there and the United States. So tell me a little bit more about this and what this means to you and your success.
Sure. So I picked my third word as empathy because any business has two sides of it's like two sides of coin. So if you look at the supply chain, on one end you have the suppliers or the vendors, and on the other hand you have the customers. As a person who's trying to conduct business, it's very important for me to empathize not only with my artisans but also with my customers. Like I previously mentioned, my women artisans would come to work from 10 to 5, and slowly I realized that they had a very tough life. They were getting up 6 o'clock in the morning, preparing meals, sending their kids off to school, packing their lunch, packing their husband's lunch, and the same drill would start again as soon as they were home at 6 p.m. So, and most of these women were my mother's age. So I'm talking to women who are 50 above. I had to really empathize with them and talk to them about their kids. Like, how are your daughters doing? How's your son doing? So I really had to make that connection with these artisans to be able to work better with them. So it helped, a glimpse into their lifestyle just helped me understand so much better that I was not dictating terms, but we were always working in collaboration, and I had to be mindful, respectful, because they were 20, 25 years older to me. A few of my block printers in the villages, again, were my father's age. So whenever they would have festivals like Eid, I would send them a present, or I would send them a text saying Eid Mubarak. And when I talk about empathy on the customer end, when I decided to come to Jefferson, it gave me a great chance to be closer to the customer. So a lot of stores that were stocking my products were women. And it was very important for me to understand from them what styles were selling better, what colors were drawing attention, because the sensibility of color is very different globally. Also, the kind of fabrics that women like here. So I would say I had to empathize with this wholesale customer who's probably a store, a boutique, or a gallery who was stocking my designs. And I had to keep her happy because she had to keep her customers happy. So empathy for my artisans and vendors, and empathy also for my wholesale customers who were store owners is very important for me.
What would you say are the biggest challenges you faced starting your company and moving to a new country? Although, to be fair, with all of the studying you did in your undergrad, this is certainly not the first time you've been in a new country. So, but doing business, I guess, maybe for the first time, what are the biggest challenges?
Right, sure. The challenges that I faced while starting my company in Ahmedabad were probably just getting the set of right team established. So right from finding these women who could hand embroider, finding a correct seamstress, a production place, a fabric supplier, a good block printer, a person who can create leather bags, and give me timely deliveries. So setting up the team was a big challenge. Plus, creating an awareness among international clients about the process and the time taken to create these handmade products was another big hurdle. So in this era of fast fashion, everyone thinks that clothing can be manufactured in 15 days. And here I am, my block printing takes 30 days. So helping the clients to understand, like, you need to place an order earlier so that I get some production time, and everything is handmade. So the timelines are much different than a Zara or an H&M.
So, what is next for Namaste NYC and Ritu?
Sure. So Namaste NYC has been primarily wholesale. So we did B2B, business to business, for around 6 years, 7 years now. We slowly feel that we are ready to go online. So we are working on our Shopify, Etsy, and other online platforms. I do want to slow it down a little. And I've been involved in academics and working with nonprofits in India. So I do feel that I'm so much better at helping others, whether it's mentoring students or mentoring them for their business plans, brainstorming on new research projects, brainstorming on new academic ideas. So Namaste will become my side hustle while I look for full-time positions in academics or nonprofits or similar organizations. So yeah, those are the next steps.
What advice would you give to someone in the GFE or fashion industry moving forward? Anyone listening to this, listening to your story about starting your business at 22, 23, and now, moving to the States, moving all over the world, really. What advice would you give them?
So I guess, like all entrepreneurs, I would say hustle, hustle, hustle. But take a break, to take a deep breath and relax and reflect what you've been doing. So I was at this conference in Chicago, the Clinton Global Initiative, and what Hillary Clinton mentioned there was have a plan, but be flexible. So work towards your ideas, work towards where you want to be, read about other people's journey, have a plan, but don't worry if things don't go your way. And take as many internships as possible. I did a color forecasting internship in New York a few summers ago, and I still keep in touch with my mentor, Mr. Keith Recker. And you would say how an Indian girl sitting in New York found Mr. Keith Recker in New York. So I had worked for another designer in India, and he was the one who connected me to this person in New York. So you never know what steps you do, what positions you take can connect and take you around the world practically.
Any last words for our listening audience?
Sure. I'm just going to take this last words to thank everyone. Thank my family who's always been there, constantly supporting me. My friends, mentors, professors, artisans, tailors, my students, the Career Service Center staff, the people at School of Business, people at Blackstone LaunchPad. I don't want to take names because I'm afraid if I start taking names, I might miss one or two people. So I'm just going to thank everyone at Jefferson and everyone at FIT, NC State, NIFT, wherever in the world that people have helped me. I'm just going to say thank you. Thank you, everyone.
That was the Ritu Jadwani. I am Patrick Ryan. Thank you for listening and look forward to new episodes from us. Our theme music is composed by Spencer and Robin of Single Use Plastic, edited by Robin and Patrick. Our podcast is in collaboration with WPHU and Career Services.